Boker Tov, good morning. Good to see you coming in today. Yes, another lovely start to a day. I hope that you feel rested today. We're getting ready for another day full of opportunity so that we can make the most out of today. Yes, Boker Tov. Good to see people starting to say hello to one another as we gather here together, just coming upon 8:30. Yes, Boker Tov. Good morning and welcome to Sinai Stream's daily offering, to this daily Boker Tov moment from Temple Sinai Congregation of Toronto. An opportunity each day to connect, to reflect, and to remember. And it's wonderful to be here with you today on this, what here in Toronto, Ontario, is a holiday Monday, in order for us to just start our day off on a good foot. And so today, let's start with a sense of gratitude. Let's pause, really, and just wonder at each new day that we're privileged to have together. Let's join together in the translation of Asher Yotzah. Blessed eternal God, creator of the universe, you have fashioned our bodies with wisdom, creating within us a finely balanced network. To stand before you in prayer is itself a fragile miracle. Eternal God, we praise you as the healer of body and spirit. And let's join in Elohai Neshama in Hebrew and English. Today, the prayer for the Neshama, for the soul, which of course is rooted for Tulin Shom, is connected by the Hebrew root to the idea of breath, that we should be inspired. We should have a spirit come into us today. Elohai Neshama shenatata bi Torahi, ata varata, ata yetzalta, ata nefachta bi. ואתה משמרה בקרבי, כל זמן שהנשמה בקרבי מודה אני לפניך, אדוני אלוהי ואלוהי אבותיי, ריבון כל המעשים, אדון כל הנשמות, ברוך אתה אדוני אשר בידו נפש כל חי, ורוח כל בשר איש. The soul that you have given me, O God, is a pure one. You have created and formed it, breathed it into me, and within me you sustain it. So long as my soul is within me, I will give thanks to you, eternal my God and God of my ancestors, source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. We praise you, eternal God, in whose hand is the power of all life and the spirit of all flesh. Let's join together in these Hebrew words of blessing for Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Ba'arev na Adonai Eloheinu, את דברי תורתך בפינו ובפי עמך בית ישראל, ונהיה אנחנו וצאצאינו וצאצאי עמך בית ישראל, כולנו יודעי שמך ולומדי תורתך לשמה, ברוך אתה אדוני, המלמד תורה לעמו בישראל. And let's, having said a blessing for Torah study, let's engage in this text that connects us to the central social obligations of our people. 10 of them, as you see. These are the obligations whose value cannot be measured. They nourish us in this world and help us to create the world to come. Kibud av va'em, to honor fathers and mothers. Milut chasadim, to perform acts of love and kindness. Ashkamad bet hamidrash shacharit ve'elvit, to attend the house of study morning and evening. Bachnasat ochim, to welcome the stranger. B'vikul cholim, to visit the sick. Bachnasat kala, to provide for brides and grooms. B'levayat hamet, to keep faith with the dead. B'yun tefillah, to pray with sincerity. B'ava'at shalom ben adam lechavero, to make peace when there is strife. Talmud Torah keneged kulam, and the study of Torah is equal to them all. Well, nothing seems more basic to the Jewish concept of prayer than saying blessings every day. And yet, the idea of saying blessings and the Torah commanding us to say blessings is the part of our weekly parsha that we'll be focusing on today. It's actually quite limited in Torah, but important to us. So in that spirit, let's join together in the morning blessings. And we'll begin with the first one, or I will, you can say them any way you wish, by saying the first 6 words in Hebrew and then continuing from the English. And then the second blessing, I'll say completely in Hebrew and alternating in that fashion. But please join me in the blessings in whichever way works for you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. You have given the rooster the natural wisdom to distinguish day from night. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tzalmenu kidmutenu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. You have given me free will. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. You have helped me provide for my needs. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Boker ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. You clothe the naked. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. You help those who are bowed to stand straight. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, boker haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. You guide each person's steps. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. You crown Israel with glory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, anoten layayef koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. You remove sleep from my eyes and weariness from my eyelids. It is traditional to recite 100 blessings a day, so it's good that we've got a good start already today. The Shema itself is surrounded by blessings, and yet itself is a recitation of sharing these words of Torah that challenge us to seek and to feel the unity in our world. Let's join together. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha ubechol nafshecha ubechol meodecha. Ve'ayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha. Ve'shinantam levanecha ve'divarta bam. Ve'shivtecha bebetecha u'blechtecha b'derech u'shochbecha u'kumecha. U'kshartam le'od al yadecha ve'hayu letotafot bein einecha. וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תכלת, היה לכם לציצית, וראיתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת. Well, having recited our Shema this morning, let's also take a moment before we study our parasha, our weekly Torah portion, and let's just remind ourselves of the 2 aspects of our personality that come from Sefer Cheshbon HaNefesh, the book of soulful accounting from Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Satanov, that we've chosen for this week. We won't be focusing on them today. We're going to be learning from our parasha, but nonetheless, let's recite them. The first one being anava, humility, and the second one savlanut, patience. Humility. Keep silent in order to learn from all those around you, acknowledging what is lacking in you and seeking to fix it. This way you will learn to turn your mind away from your strengths or the defects of others. Patience. When something bad happens to you that you could not have avoided by being careful, don't make it even worse through pointless sorrow. It's always helpful to have a reminder of the opportunities for growth that we have every day. Our parasha this week is Parashat Ekev, the third parasha in the book of Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, a book, again, as we may remember, that represents really the last speeches of Moshe Rabbeinu, the last month and a week, basically, of his life, of his opportunity as they stood overlooking the promised land, not just some ambiguous metaphorical promised land like we might think about in the way we speak, but about the land of Canaan, the land of Israel. And as they were ready to go in, and he spoke to the people at this end point of his life. So the character of this text of Devarim is quite different than other places and has such an important place, not only in the recitations of our people, like the reciting of the Shema, but at least as much in the formation of a Jewish tradition that could be recited by not a people living in a mythical wilderness, but a people living in a real land. And this week, Parashat Ekev, it really focuses more on the land itself. And I want to take a look together from chapter 8 of the book of Deuteronomy at these few verses together that say two things. They tell us of the character of this beautiful land of our people, the land of Israel, which is the land of origin of our people. We are, in fact, in that land, an Aboriginal people. That is, even though our history has been one of great challenge in maintaining our presence in the land, it is the land from which the Jewish people and our tradition flows. And likewise, we find in this last verse that we'll share something that truly comes to shape Jewish prayer throughout the ages. So these verses from chapter 8, just 7, 8, 9, and 10, brief but so significant. For the eternal your God is bringing you into a good land, a land with streams and springs and fountains issuing from plain and hill, a land of wheat and barley, of vines, figs, and pomegranates, a land of olive trees and honey, a land where you may eat food without stint, where you will lack nothing, a land whose rocks are iron and from whose hills you can mine copper. When you have eaten your fill, give thanks to the eternal your God for the good land which God has given you. Now, these words that flow in the English translation from a speech have so much more significance in the history of our people. First of all, the idea that we need to be grateful that for the land, both for the land of Israel, and a reminder that the things that we have, the things that we eat, all we depend on comes not from, of course, some kind of store, but in fact depends upon our ability to maintain and look after the earth, the land. That while our people originally was agricultural, these words are imagined as coming even before the time of our people being farmers. And it reminds us of our interdependence with our environment. And it describes in verse 8 the Zayin Minim, these 7 species that are special for the land of Israel: a land of wheat, barley, vines, meaning grapes, figs, pomegranates, of olive trees. The Hebrew says Eretz Zet Shemen, of olives for oil. Just we don't think of olives just as eating them, but of the product of olive oil. And likewise, dvash, honey, in this case, refers not to the honey that comes from bees, but date honey, because of the significance of dates that grow in the land of Israel. And so these 7 species are specific to Israel and remind us of not just our connection to land and environment in general, but to our land itself. And it is, interestingly enough, it's described in verse 9 as a place we will want for nothing, but that requires effort of us. It's a place that's dependent on rain, on the entire ecological system. Egypt at the time was regarded as the most stable of lands with the Nile. There was always water and always an opportunity for food. And yet, even as the stories in the book of Genesis show, the land becomes the land of Israel, and for our people is a place that's dependent on this give and take between human beings and the land. And out of that comes our ability to feed ourselves. And we have, as we sing in the Birkat HaMazon, this actual quotation, verse 10, V'achalta V'savata uve'erachta et Adonai Elohecha ala haaretz hatova asher natan lach. And this is taken as the one time in Torah. This is the only practice that we have now that involves blessings that's considered by the rabbinic system to be a Torah-based commandment. What does it say? It says, V'achalta, you will eat. V'savata, you will be satisfied. Uve'erachta, and you will bless. You will make a bracha to the eternal, your God, for the good land that has been given to you. So while we do say blessings before we eat, and there are a number of different interpretations that include that in this verse as well, right? We say a brief blessing before we eat, but the primary gratitude that we show is in the order of this verse. We eat, and if we eat enough that it's really a meal to be sated, then we recite blessings in order to show our gratitude that are not just about the food, but about the land. And of course, the Birkat Hamazon is made up of three blessings. Hazan et Hakol, acknowledging God as the one who sustains and feeds all. Ala haaretz ve'al hamazon, for the land and for food. And so the second blessing is for land, and Bnei Yerushalayim, and acknowledging God as the builder of Jerusalem. That it's not just any land that we think of our people throughout our history and today as well, when we're privileged to live in a time when we have our own homeland again, that we say a blessing each time we eat for our land and the land of Israel. So these blessings are taken to be a Torah commandment, that this is the place where the Torah says, eat and be satisfied and offer blessing. Because the idea, the ethical essence of blessings is simple. It says over and over again in our tradition that one who takes benefit from this world and shows no gratitude, it's as if that person were taking what is not theirs. It's as if that person were stealing. That whether or not we use a particular blessing formula to show our gratitude, that the place, the spiritual place in which we are commanded to live, even in our Torah, as we eat each day to sustain ourselves, is to be aware of our dependence, of our interdependence, and our responsibility to see that we show gratitude for what we have. That nothing we have, it just shows up for us. That all of it is part of a larger system, a physical system, a spiritual or divine system. And so for us to have the opportunity to say brachot, to each time something special, well, when something happens for the first time, for us to make a blessing and say, I am privileged to share in this moment. For us each time we eat, to show gratitude for the strength of body and spirit that we draw from it. All of that comes from this week's parasha and is found rooted in Torah. The entire system of reciting blessings is rooted in this verse that we have studied this morning. It's a reminder that we need to always, for ourselves, sort of review where we are and what it is that we are privileged to have. It is a real challenge not to become so accustomed to what we have that we think it is due to us, but instead to constantly feed that attitude of thankfulness that we should live with. We should be thankful for our well-being, especially every day, and wishing strength for all those who are ill, for all those who are experiencing isolation or going through a difficult transition, for any who are risking their own health for our benefit. For all of them, we join together in these words of a refuah. ומשברך רבותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, ואמותינו שרה רבקה, לאה ורחל, הוא ירפא את כל מכותינו. יהי רצון מלפניך אדוני אלוהינו, לחלימם ולרפאותם, ישלח לנו מהרה רפואה שלמה וטרף שלום, ונאמר Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless and heal all who suffer. May it be the divine will to provide healing and strength. Reveal to us the holiness of life, the wholeness of shalom, and together we say, Amen. And so now that we've had the opportunity to connect and to reflect, we take a moment and we remember, recalling the loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own. So this morning, on this 13th day of the month of Av, the 3rd day of August, 2020, on Shloshim, in the past 30 days, we extend our condolences to the families of Alan Fridson, Rose Rich, Benji Fruitman, Judy Gabai, Helene Frankie Springer, Margot Grosbane, Rabbi Mark Shapiro, and Jan Siegel. And it is our sad duty to report the death of our member, Edith Grossman, mother of George. Graveside funeral will take place tomorrow, Tuesday, at 2 p.m. at Pardes Shalom Temple Sinai section. Likewise, on their Yort site on this day, on the 13th of Av, we remember Michael Fogel, Ruth Humph, Mark Kirschenbaum, Benjamin Lebo, Vera Spitz, Joseph Spring. Zichronam Levracha, may their memories be a blessing to us as we turn together to words sanctified by memory, words glorified by hope in the Kaddish Yatom. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabba, ve'alma divrach yiruteh, ve'yamlich malchuteh, ve'chayechon ve'yamechon, ve'chaye dechol bet Yisrael, v'agala v'izman kariv imru, Amen. Yehe Shmei Rabba mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה ברכו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, ואמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and bring comfort and strength to all who remember. And together we say, Amen. Boker Tov, wishing each of you and all of us a great day. Make it a good one.